Greetings and salutations, everyone. Back with another retro movie review here, another 80s one with Trancers from 1985. Now, I could have sworn that I'd seen this one before. I'd spent so many summers watching tons of things that I recorded off of cable, not to mention everything that, I'd rent off VHS, but turns out I hadn't, and I didn't even actually really seek this one out. It actually came part as a, within another catalog of films from another service called Full Moon Features, which I'd gotten a few months back, which I'll have a little more on them in a moment. But anyways, Trancers, 1985, starring Tim Thomerson and Helen Hunt. I believe this is only her maybe third or fourth film that she'd ever been in. So this is one of those very frustrating films because, some of my reasons why. Let me first just go into the official synopsis, which states, Jack Death, yes, that's his name, Jack Death, D-E-T-H. So, anyways, Jack Death is a police officer in the 23rd century who has been hunting down Martin Whistler, a criminal mastermind who uses psychic powers to turn people into mindless trancers and carry out his orders. Before he can be caught, Whistler escapes back in time using a drug-induced time-traveling technique. But who hasn't done that before? At least once or twice. Anyways, so our protagonist needs to go back in time to stop him. Now, the time travel in this film is actually quite interesting. I can only really compare it to maybe a little bit of X-Men Days of Future Past meets maybe a little bit of Quantum Leap sprinkled on top there, in that they're not actually just getting into some machine and traveling back in time. It's their consciousness which is traveling back in time through their genetic bloodline to some relation in the past. So if you were to travel back in time, you could end up in your great-great-grandfather or your great-great-grand niece, who's 8 years old or something. I mean, you could end up at, anywhere in the past. So, of course, for our protagonist, though, the person he ends up being in the body of looks exactly like him. I mean, you have to keep the star looking like the star. Anyways, so when he goes back in time, he's going from the 23rd century down to 1985 LA, of course, where, he's teamed up with anyways. So Jack Death is played by Tim Thomerson. He's teamed up with Lena, who's played by Helen Hunt. They'd just had this one-night stand, and he's trying to kind of get his bearings being in 1985 and teaming up with her to help track down this bad guy. So along the way, of course, somebody would randomly start attacking them because they're being controlled. They're now a trancer being controlled by the bad guy and everything. So you never know who's going to just pop out and come after you. He's also sent back in time with a few gadgets. I think he has a weapon that, is special, and this little watch that lets him slow down time for 10 or 20 seconds so he can move at regular speed while the rest of the world is slow around him. So it does have a little bit of that sci-fi aspect with some of those things as he's trying to track down the bad guy and save the day, save the future, whatever. But with this, it's a very interesting concept, I think. The story actually kept me engaged the entire time, even with, the bad special effects, put aside. I mean, this thing really didn't have much of a budget, it seems like. And there were some points in it that it felt a bit rushed here and there. But for the most part, it works. But just for the most part, not in every part. See, the very frustrating thing about this film is that while, the acting is fine, and not just for the material that they had. I mean, everybody does a, decent job in general. And the story's interesting. It really pulled me in. I was in, as I said, it pulled me in. I was engaged, and this time travel concept I found to be unique as well. And, I actually, enjoyed it for the most part. It's just, and I would like to see more of these films. As I'm watching the first one, I'm thinking, this concept is good. They could do several films. More on that in a moment. But that frustration comes from the fact that this honestly, to me, feels like a first draft screenplay that's just been put on film. Like they had an idea, like a pitch, and they said, hey, we have this idea. And they said, okay, just go, make it. So it doesn't feel fully fleshed out or anything. And while they're kind of trying to take the viewer on this journey in their story, it feels more like you're being pulled along and maybe stumbling through the adventure. So you may be enjoying certain aspects of it, but also feel like they didn't really finish this. Now, as I mentioned, there are sequels to this. In total, I believe there's 6 of these films. I made it through 4 of them so far, because originally I was going to do a review of just the entire series and have a quick, minute or so for each one of the films to just see how they progressed along the way. because while I was dimly aware that Trancers had come out in the 80s, I'd never kept up with them or seen them, so I was surprised to find out that there's 6 of them. But by the time they got to the 4th one, they'd just been phoning it in so much it was ridiculous. It really seemed like they had some other screenplay, some other characters, and they just plugged in Jack Death and said, well, let's just turn this into a Trancers story. And it really didn't work. It was really painful to get through it. But anyways, before I get into the actual rating for this, let me just also tell you how I came across it, and that was from Full Moon Features. I've been seeing tons of ads for this on Facebook. So they had this special where for $60 you could get an entire year subscription, and you would get the 12-disc Blu-ray set of Puppet Master. Now, I'd only seen the first Puppet Master probably when it first hit VHS, but it just seemed like such a strange deal that, of course, I had to do it. And now I look like I'm the super fan of Puppet Master, which I'm not, but this is in my collection now. 12 of those movies. 12. And I use the term movie very loosely on that. But anyways, the best way I could kind of describe the catalog that Full Moon Features has is to say, okay, it's a bunch of B movies, sci-fi, horror, comedy, a bunch of B movies. I'd actually call them C movies in a way, with a little bit of that Skinamax softcore porn thrown on top of it. It's a very strange catalog, but I figured there were a few films in there I was curious about, ones that I wanted to revisit or ones from way back that I never got around to seeing the first time, so I gave it a shot. Sometimes you just want to watch something stupid anyways. So, got the service queued up scanners, and like I said, for the most part I enjoyed it. It just felt like it, isn't necessarily a good movie. It is watchable. They do have some really good concepts in here. It is interesting, it keeps you engaged for the most part. It just is so poorly executed. The whole time I'm thinking of all the movies they've been doing reboots of, this is one that they got a good concept there that if they just threw some extra money and some extra writers into it, I think they could make something much better. So because of how poorly it was executed, I'm going to knock this one down and give it maybe a D+, in that it's a bad movie. You don't need to avoid it, but if you want something kind of dumb to watch, but is still entertaining enough to want to see how it ends, queue it up. You could either get it on Full Moon Features. I think they have some different deal right now where you can get other, Blu-rays from their, from the catalog, so you don't have to get stuck with just all these Puppet Master ones. But, it's also a short film. It's about 76 minutes long. But really for this film and that review, that's about as good as it gets. Wink. It's like Helen Hunt thing there. Anyways, that's about all I got for this one. I hope you enjoyed this review. Give Trancers a viewing if you're curious about it. And that's about all I got. Be sure to do the whole like and subscribe and share, and get some more content out there. And I'll see you in the next video. See you later.